Okay, now we're on. Awesome. Okay. Whew. Okay. By the way, stop me if you have questions and something's not clear, or if I'm repeating something too much, because I know I'm repeating a lot of things or some stuff I really want to sink in. Also, stop me for that. Okay. Just let you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one of the things I was telling you is that the reason is about the reason we're doing Access and how you can like do things in a lot of ways. A couple of the things you're gonna learn is things like well, maybe it's too early for inheritance. Well, okay. Well, let's get right into the querying. Let's get right into the thing that we're here for. You see this complicated query right here, and how when I hit view, it'll like show me these records.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna do is show you how to make this, but there's a different view. This is the SQL view. So this is the SQL code. This is how I do most of my database work with SQL code, right? But like you don't actually need to know that in Access. In Access, you can go to Design View, and you can just like play with these little tables like this, and not even have to deal with the little code, or not even have to deal with this. So I'm just going to delete this right now. I'll delete all that. And I'm just going to start from scratch. Let's just close this. And we'll close all this stuff. Okay. And I'm just going to start from scratch. Let's go with query design. We could do the wizard. I don't want to do the wizard. We're not going to do the wizard. Query design. And it's going to say, okay, well, what tables are we using today? Well, what data are we trying to get? We want to get, and again, I've already done this in front of you. I'm just doing it very slowly now. So you saw me do this really fast to like make a quick form, but I'm going to do this very, it'll be easy. All right. So what information do we want from this query? Well, we want to know the question we want to answer. And that's what query is. A query is basically, it's just another word for question. What are we asking the database? What are we querying the database for? What information, this is an interrogation. What information are we trying to get? All right. So the information we want to get today is, and this is why I wanted you to put a lot of classes. You kind of didn't put very many, but it's okay. Maybe I should make some more. No. Okay, for now, I'm not gonna make more. I'll make more later. For now, let's say we want to find out what classes Ron is in. Can you tell me right now what classes Ron is in?
Well, I don't see anything, so no.
No, you can't. Yeah, that's right, you can't. Now, if I show you this, can you tell me what classes Ron is in?
Not if I don't know his ID.
Okay, well, I'm gonna bring up students. Now, can you tell me what classes Ron is in?
You should be able to, yeah.
All right, what classes is he in?
Let's look for his name. Ron is student ID number 2. So he's in 3 classes.
Okay, what classes?
Well, I don't see the classes, so.
Exactly, so you can't tell me what classes he's in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tell this query to go to all of these places so you can get all the information. You can't get all the information just by looking at this table. You can't get all the information you want by looking at this table. The only way you can answer my question is if you look at all of these tables. So when it asks me, when I make this query, when I first open up new query and it asks me, hey, what tables do you want to use? What do you think I'm gonna answer?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So we kind of just answered this question, but I'm going to ask you to answer it again. To answer the question, the query, what classes is Ron in? What tables will we need to look at?
We need to look at both table classes or even form classes and form students.
No, we're not looking at forms. Queries only look at tables.
Okay, so table classes and table students then.
Okay, so we'll take table classes, we'll take table students. And is this enough to tell us what classes Ron is in?
No, because we need the bridge.
Why is that? You can't just tell me from this?
Well, no, because that's just classes and students. It's not linked to anything.
Yeah, that's correct, right? Because we just did it. I brought all 3 of those tables. I brought this table up. You couldn't tell me. I brought up the bridge. You couldn't tell me. You actually need to bring in all of those tables to be able to answer my question, right? So that's what you're going to do. And so you saw me add all of those tables, like it was asking me. Like, let me go bring that little screen back up again. When it was asking me, I knew based on what these tables look like, I knew which tables I would have to bring in to answer my question, right? Did I bring in professors? No. I don't need that to answer the question that I just asked.
I need to.
Okay, understand?
I'm sorry, Charity was saying something to me. Could you repeat that?
Okay. to answer the question that I asked, which class is Ron in, or which classes does he have? These are the tables these are the tables I need. Did I need to bring in professors? No. That is not relevant to answering the question I just asked.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
going to help us. So you bring in exactly what you need. And that's what we did. I chose those tables. I clicked add, and it added those. And then we can now close this. All right, hold on a second. There's like this fly buzzing around me. So annoying. People keep leaving the door open, and that's why I keep getting like these little flies. Probably should stop buying so many mangoes too. I think that might be part of the reason. All right, so I'm just resizing the screen. All right, so you may think to yourself, great. So now we brought these tables in. What do we do now, right? So what do we do? Well, what information do you want?
We want to know which student is in which class.
Okay. Well, just tell me. What do you want? Just tell me what would you want this to spit out? Just throw some stuff out there.
What would I want what to spit out?
This query. When it answers your question, how do you want it to answer you?
For example, when I'm searching through classes, I want, I guess the query, this is kind of complicated to think about, but I want the query to let me know which student is to which class when I'm looking through classes, I guess. Okay. That's one way to say it.
Sure. That's one way to say that. You know what? I'm going to give you the answer because this is kind of the way you need to do it. When I want a list, usually, I kind of want to know, I kind of think of it as show me a class and show me a name and where they match up. That's kind of what I usually want to know. So give me names. So I'll double click first name, I'll double click last name, and I'll double click class name. So as you can see, I got information from over here, and I got information from over here. Classes, names. I got information from both places. This is actually all you need to do to answer my question. So now I'm going to go over here and press view, and you're able to answer my question now. What classes is Ron in?
Yeah, but this isn't perfected yet because we don't see all the classes Ron's in. We only see one of the classes Ron's in. Oh, nope. Yeah, we do. Nope. I see it.
Not true. We see every class Ron is in. So actually, just saying.
Actually.
So let's go back to design view, and I'm just going to let you know. By linking all these tables together and then saying give me names, it actually will give me all the info.
But you don't want all the info, do you?
Don't
you just want?
I just want Ron's classes. So that's where some magic comes in. See where it says criteria?
Yeah.
Well, we'll say criteria is Ron. Okay, and then now let's go to view.
Oh, okay.
Only Ron's classes.
Well, don't we actually want all the students though?
That's not the query that I asked you. The question, because a query is just a question to the database. That question could be anything. Our question was, what classes is Ron in? In fact, our question wasn't even, what is Ron's name? That was not our question. So this is actually giving us more than what we asked. So, you know what? Let's go back here. Let's right click. Oops. I'll click, and I'm just going to press delete on my keyboard. I'm going to click right here, right when the arrow changes to that, and I'm going to hit delete. And now let's hit view. Oops. Actually, no, that's not what I wanted. Let's bring that back. I'm going to say Ron, and I'm just going to unclick show. So don't show me the names, and then view. There we go. That answers the question perfectly.
Yeah, it does. It does.
What classes is Ron in? Not what is Ron's name. Although I like to display the name just so I know I'm answering the question right. But if I asked you, hey, give me a query that just shows me all of Ron's classes, this would be the correct answer. So did you follow how I did that?
Yes.
So when I clicked show and I check those, it will show those. And if I unclick it, if I uncheck show, it's not going to show it to me. Now you might wonder, why then did I choose to put these here? if I wasn't even going to show them. Do you know why?
Well, yeah. So so you have like a double, or how can I say this? You want the names to be shown because that way like you answered your question.
Yeah,
Like
that's one
twice.
reason.
You know what I mean? It's like almost
That's
like
one
double
reason.
checking your answer.
Yes, exactly. So I always double check my answer. But the other reason I have to have first name here is because I need a place to put the word Ron. I can't put Ron under class. Ron isn't the class. Ron is a first name.
Yeah.
So and you know, you could do the same thing. You could say Stuart is my criteria. The same thing.
Yeah, or if you have like a giant database of like a huge school with like 1,000 students, you would have to put both names because there would probably be a lot of duplicates.
Correct. It's absolutely correct. If you had this is why I wanted you to put a lot of students. If you had 2 students that were named, you know, Ron Stewart and Rebecca Stewart, for example, then if I would say, okay, last name Stewart, then the class list it would show me would be for both of them.
Yeah.
And it would show me all their classes just mixed together, and we don't want that. So you would have to put the first and the last name. Hey, how come it's not showing up here?
I'm not sure.
Because I unchecked them.
Oh, okay.
So even though these are my criteria, I don't have to actually show that when I answer the query.
Quick question.
Yes.
What would you do? I mean, this may be a little bit of an advanced question, but what would you do if you have 2 students that are named exactly the same thing? Like, how would you get around that?
That is an excellent question. That is an excellent question. And maybe you're going to be able to answer that for me. I think you can answer that for me. Let's say I put in, let me delete these students. These are bad students. I just put that in because I was testing it out earlier. All right, let's say we have another Jade Alvarez, right?
Yeah.
How will we know which one is which?
Would you add a date of birth to your query?
Yes, that's one way. And this is why people store things like date of birth, social security number. Like that's why that stuff exists, because people can have the same name. You need a way to figure out who's who. There could be many John Smiths. How will you know which John Smith you're talking about? That's why you store date of birth. That's why you store social security number. That's why you store address. That's why you store many things. But let's say you had, and I know someone like this, I won't say their name, but we'll use Jade Alvarez here, your very first student. We'll have another Jade Alvarez. There's 2 of them. One of them is born 12/5/2001, and the other one was also born 12/5/2001. But they're from 2 completely different families. But they just happen to be born on the same day and have the same name. Oh no. How then are we supposed to query?
You could add a phone number to your query or something else.
What if they live in the same house? Or what if they don't have phones? What if we just don't know their address and phone number?
Oh, social security number.
No, we don't have that in this database. We don't store social security numbers.
Okay, so let me think for a minute. I'll see if I can figure this out.
How could you tell these 2 apart?
I don't know, honestly.
I'm going to give you the answer. Because the number, the ID, is always different.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Always, always, always. The ID is different. And you were asking me, oh, why do we put ID? Or maybe you didn't ask me. But I definitely told you I always put an ID. And that's why I always put an ID. Because maybe you have 2 John Smiths. And you know what? To be perfectly honest, 2 John Smiths probably have different birthdays. They probably have different addresses. They probably have different phone numbers. That's true. But what if you don't have all that information at the time? No matter what, 2 people, no matter how similar the information is, the IDs are always different. Same thing for classes. If you go to classes, you may have another Algebra 2, and maybe a different teacher teaches it. How will you know which Algebra 2 class has these kids, which Algebra 2 class has these kids? It's the same thing. They're both math-based. You know, they both may have extra credit. They both may have tutors. They both may have all the same stuff. How do you know which Algebra 2 class the person is taking? Because the IDs are always different. Always.
Mm-hmm.
So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's go back to our query. I'm going to ask you another question, and I want to see if you can do this. If you can do this, I would be very, very impressed right now. We're going to start over. And let me just bring this up really quick. I just want to check something. Yeah, you really did not have enough records here. I mean, this is not enough. So I'm going to have to add some.
To the bridge?
Yes. I mean, this is not enough bridge records. This is kind of what I was saying earlier. You know what? I'm going to make my, no, it's going to take too long. You said you didn't have a lot of time. So, all right, I'm just going to make it up as I go. A lot more records here. It's just not enough.
How are you going from cell to cell without clicking it?
Oh, arrow keys. Okay. Okay, this is better. You see how quick that was? It took me like, 10 seconds. You could have did this and made 100 rows. That's okay. All right, so do you remember everything I told you about queries?
Obviously not everything,
No.
but I remember most of it.
I'm gonna get you to, I'm gonna see if we can get through this. And this will be all you need to do. Tell me everyone who is in the programming class. How will I do that?
Well, you would, first of all, you would want to get data from the table of classes.
Yeah, I need to get information from there, so I'm just gonna double click that.
Next, you would need to obviously get the data from the table of students.
Okay, that's true.
And finally, we would need the bridge from the bridge that connects classes and table students together.
That is also true.
That's the most important part.
That is also true, yes.
So, and then I think we could close it now since we have enough.
Yep, that's true. This is enough. These tables together, these three tables are enough to tell us the answer to my question, who's in the programming class. What should we do next?
Next, we would add the class name to the table that's in the query on the bottom of the screen.
Yep, that's true. And how will we do that?
I think you can click and drag, I think.
You can click and drag. You can also just double click on it. You can also click this little drop down. There are many ways to do it. But yes, we'll click and drag and, oops, we don't need to. We just need one. And there you have it. Is this enough to tell us what we want to know?
No.
What else might we want?
I think next we would also need first name and last name from the table of students.
Oh, that might be useful.
In the query.
All right, I've double clicked on those and it's given me first name and last name.
And just like we just went over, what if there's a student that has, the same exact name that lives in the same exact address? I think we would also want the student ID.
Sure, yeah, that's a good way to do it. In fact, I'll tell you right now, in most systems, you do things by ID.
Okay.
Is that all we want to see?
And the question was, what was the question again?
The question was who's in the programming class?
Who's in
all the students in the programming class?
Okay. So the criteria under class name, we would put the programming, not the programming class, but programming, whatever the name of the class is.
Programming. Okay.
And let me see if there's anything I'm missing. have the class name, we have the students, we have the first last name, you have the classes, you have the ID. Set in the right spot. Okay, yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, I think we're good too. What do we do now?
I'm not exactly sure how to launch the query.
Okay, that's all right. There's two ways to do it. You can press run or you can press view. They both do the same thing, run. Is this the answer to our question?
The question was how many students are in the programming class. That looks correct. I mean,
it is correct. These are the people who are in the programming class.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what if it missed one or something? I don't know. I was just thinking, I'm like, maybe there could be another student that I missed, but I'm like, no, I grabbed all the student IDs, I grabbed all the first and last names, and that should be all the information I need to know who's in the programming class.
That's right. And if you want to verify that, let's just open up our bridge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort by class ID. Now, why would I want to do that? It's actually very easy now to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
By sorting by class ID, it shows each student is in which wasn't well. Technically, it shows each student was in what's in that. Sorry. Technically, it shows which student is in which class. It doesn't show the class name, but it does show the IDs. And that's really all I need is the IDs to see, because I already have the query over here that shows it, like, you know, display. It displays it very well rather than the bridge.
Yeah. And
that's how I would know. And by sorting by class ID, it lines them all up because it shows exactly what I just said. The class that all those students have.
Yeah. That's right. So that's exactly right. You've explained that very, very clearly, very, very well. So I'm going to do another sort. I'm going to sort by student ID. What do you think this tells us?
This tells us, this one's pretty easy. This tells us how many classes that student has.
Yeah. What else does it tell us?
It also tells us
not just how many. It also tells you what they are.
Well, right? Yeah, but it doesn't.
Kind
of. It tells us the ID, but it doesn't tell us the name.
Yeah. So this is how the computer reads everything, right? So if you look at my little advanced form, the computer just sees the IDs. That's why I made them in red. The computer doesn't care about what your name is, what the name of a class is. All it cares about is how the IDs are all related. We as humans need to put names on stuff so that it's easy for us to understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So all a query does is it takes this bridge. I'm just going to close this query. We're done with this. It takes this relationship bridge and it turns it into something that's very readable so that we can answer questions. Like, tell me the class this person is in. Tell me what students are in this class. And you're able to answer all these things. And so as you probably guessed, maybe you guessed this, I don't know. But we're also going to have a bridge to link professors to classes.
Yeah. Will we eventually make a bridge that links 3 things together, or is it better to keep it simple and do 2 by 2?
There are going to be many, many links. Do you remember that little image I showed you of a database that had so many links?
Yeah. But I mean, like,
many links.
I mean, like, are we ever going to, like, do you ever make a query that links, like, 3 things together?
Oh, yeah, we did that today.
And, like, how would you, well, I guess we're not there yet, but how would you know what is the point of origin? I mean, I'm not there yet. I'd have to see it, because I can't, it's really hard to
ask the question. I think I know where you're going.
Okay. This is pretty tough to explain. Give me a minute. So I think my question was, so what we were doing with the queries before, we grabbed data from 2 different tables.
Correct. 3 actually, to be exact.
I think why it's so tough what I'm thinking is because I don't have the foundation of what my question is because I was kind of
I know what you're
confused.
reaching for, though. I do see what you're reaching for. You're kind of wondering, well, where do I start? Right now, it's very obvious. You start here because class information and student information is here. Yeah, you don't have the details, but you have the relationship. You're wondering to yourself, well, what if you have many tables with many relationships? How do I know which tables to pick from, and how do I know how to link them together?
Exactly. Like what order? Like, what is there a special order? Like,
Yes.
Is there a
Yes, there
main
is.
point of origin?
Yes,
Like,
there is.
what's going on here?
The point of origin, I'll tell you right now, is whatever you want it to be. And it depends on the question. So since we're asking about what classes have what students, this makes sense as the point of origin where we're gonna start, where we're like, we definitely need this. Then you start thinking to yourself, okay, well, what else can I bring in? When you ask a question, when you make a query to the database, you kind of have some idea of what information you want to get, and you start wherever you want to start. Now, is that to say that whenever you get a question, you can just start anywhere, like wherever you feel like? Yes, but some places to start are better than others. And you're going to learn as you do the queries which ways are easier. Because as I said, you can start wherever makes the most sense to you, but again, some ways are easier than others. Let me give
With
you
the
an example.
ways. Oh, sorry, I had
No, go
another
ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
With the way that would be easier than others is what you're saying, would be the table that has the most amount of data and the most information about that specific thing, right?
Generally, that's how I like to do it. I like to start somewhere that I know has a lot of information.
Oh, okay.
So one day I may ask you a question like, okay, tell me what this student's GPA is. What is, your first student, Jade Alvarez, what is her GPA? So you may say to yourself, and obviously we don't have tables for this right now, but just imagine to yourself, well, what kinds of information would we want to get to answer that question?
Hmm.
I mean, think to yourself, well, one, we probably want her name.
Of course.
We probably want her ID. I always want IDs. Well, what else might we want to know? Well, we probably want to know how many classes she had, right? Because when you're calculating a GPA, it depends on how many classes you had. So you're probably going to want to go to the class table. But you also kind of want to know what she got in those classes, like her performance. So you're probably going to want to also go to the grades table. Okay, so you go to classes, grades, and students tables. That's probably enough. Now, querying just isn't about going to the right tables. It's also about putting the right criteria. So not only do you have to put all those tables in there, you also have to say, hey, I only want the information for that one student. So you got to put her into the criteria. Not only that, but you also have to do some division. You have to say, okay, well, how many classes are in the class table? And that's a different query.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going to have two queries in one. You're going to have one query that just gathers all the classes together, one query that's going to count up how many classes there are, and one query that's going to add up all the points for the grade point average. And so it's actually going to be multiple queries, and that's something we're going to have to go into later, how to bring multiple queries together. Right now, you're just figuring out how to bring one query. I mean, you actually could do that, answer that question in one query, but I'm just thinking about like, how do I break this down into like, because any problem can be broken down into like further problems. And so when I think about it at its most fundamental level, yes, you can do it in one query, but when you think about it, when you conceptualize it, you're kind of thinking of three different questions. How many classes did she have? What were her grades in those classes? And what is the answer when you divide that? And that's how you get a GPA.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a special query you can write. And where you start, well, you can start down in the grades section, but that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense because it's just like, what, you're just going to look at the entire list of grades? No. First, we're going to just look at the entire list of students and narrow it down to one student. To me, that makes more sense than like going to a list of grades and then just grabbing a handful of grades, right? Like that is like, how would you know? Like which grades belong to her? You can't just look at her grade table and be like, oh yeah, those look like her grades. It's like, no. You have to like tie her ID to like a particular class and then tie that class's IDs, like the grade IDs, and like tie those grade IDs to like her performance, right? So like, that's why IDs are so important. It connects everything together.
Mm-hmm.
So when we looked at our relationship table or our relationship diagram, notice it's all connected with the IDs. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think that should answer your question, right? Like you're asking basically, how do we answer these complex questions that have many, many tables? We just kind of follow the IDs around.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
So sometimes you'll have a bunch of bridges. Like for example, you'll have grades like way out here. Well, you can't go straight from student to grades, but you could probably go from students to classes to grades.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see. I see.
Or
What
you
you're
can
saying.
probably go from like, or like, let's say my question is, well, what are the GPAs of people that take that person's class? Well, you can go from professors to classes to students to grades, something like that. It depends. It depends on how the bridges are linked up, right? Like for example, when we were trying to ask our question about who's in what class, well, we needed to go here because that allows us to connect these two things, because this has something from both. And so there's going to be other bridges that kind of connect things together too. And you just kind of follow that along to tell what tables you need. That's going to be clear when there's more tables. Right now, it's a very small database. You just have a handful of tables. Okay, so I think that's enough information for now. This is, yeah.
So yeah, save that.
I'm not going to save it. It's okay.
It had the extra records on it, but never mind.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. You can easily make it again now that you know how to do it. So, and if you need to know how to do it, you can just rewatch this. It's all recorded. I'm just going to change the version number to, that's good, and kind of started at 6 today. So, or not exactly. I don't remember exactly what. All right, so that's enough for now. Let's just look at the homework. It says do basic querying. What I want you to do, and this is not going to be something you have to turn in because I didn't show you how to save it, but I want you to answer some basic questions. First of all, well, yeah. First of all, I want you to, at least for 3 students, make a query to see their classes. And then for 3 classes, make a query to see the students in it. Sound good?
Yeah.
So those are very easy queries to write because I did them right in front of you, and so you actually can see. So I just want you to get practice making those queries. Now usually, like I said, I write up the SQL myself as code, but since you're just learning this concept, you're gonna not write the SQL, you're going to use the tool. You're gonna go to create query and you're gonna make these queries.
The query wizard, right?
No, it's not the query wizard, it's actually just gonna be design.
Okay.
Okay. So it's very easy. And the reason I'm making it so easy for you is because you need to start getting practice with that, and you're gonna have to learn more complex querying next time, or maybe just more practice, I'll see. That's what you're gonna do. You're also, in addition to answering these questions, creating these queries, you're going to remake the students form. And I'm gonna let you do whatever you want for that. You know what? You've seen what a good form looks like. There's classes, there's professors. You see what these look like. I want you to make a good form for students. You know what? We've used red and blue. Why don't you make this green? Make us a nice green form for students, because this isn't pretty. So that's what you're going to do. Okay.
All right.
So, and you're probably going to have to, you might end up needing to go back and look up how to do that in the previous video, but yeah, just that's what you need to do. So that's it. That's all I have for today. We'll try to go over more querying later. This is honestly the very most basic form of programming in my mind is querying. Maybe it's because I'm a data person. I didn't really start on databases, but to me, databases are something that's really easy to understand, and it's so fundamental to so much of what you do. Or at least the kind of work that I do is so fundamental. So, you know, even if you're like a UI programmer that just like makes all these forms, or, you know, you do business intelligence where all you do is just like make reports that spit out information, or like no matter what, you still kind of have to work with data. So I think it's kind of important to kind of just see what it looks like on the bottom and how it's like congealed into a larger thing. So that's it for today. And we'll probably work on more querying. We'll probably do some more form building. Yeah, this is already starting to look good. I mean, like, I'll add the switchboard so that we can do more forms. I'll like add the buttons for that. But for now, you know, this should be enough. So I'm gonna just stop the share.